Alright, what's going on, everybody? This is Z3 here back to a brand new video. More college football reactions. Final regular season week 14. After this, we're heading to the conference championships and the college football playoff of this year. Had a lot of great games on Rivalry Week, also known as Hate Week. Let's get into it. First things first, Indiana playing Purdue. Purdue finished the season with no wins in the Big Ten, 0-9. Meanwhile, Indiana caps off a perfect regular season, going 12-0 for the first time probably in school history, arguably its best season in school history under head coach Kurt, however you say his last name. Indiana, one of the worst teams in the entirety of college football, entire history of college football, is one of the most losing teams of all time. All of a sudden, very real chance from the championship here. They win 56-3. Texas A&M and Texas playing. The ancient rivalry renewed as Texas has rejoined the SEC. Texas A&M was 11-0, trying to cap off an undefeated season for the first time since like the 1940s, and they lost. It's funny, having their best season they've had since the 1940s, well, since 1992, I believe, and they're still a little brother. They held the lead, scored a late touchdown, second quarter, up 10-3, and then in the second half it was all Texas. A&M did not score a touchdown until the fourth quarter. Texas went on a 24-7 run to win 27-17 and ruin. Not only did they ruin Texas A&M's undefeated season, but they kicked them out of the race for the SEC championship. Despite having their best season of all time, they will not play in the conference championship, and they have not since they joined the SEC. Texas plays spoiler and makes a good case to get into the playoffs, despite being 9-3. If they only had beat Florida, they would be in for sure. But we'll discuss that later. Well, we'll discuss now. Not to mention, Texas is the first team since 2019. That's right, LSU, arguably one of the best teams in the entirety history of college football. They're the first team since LSU did that in 2019 to have 3 top 10 wins. A&M, Vandy, Oklahoma. 2 of which are still in the top 10. One of which might be a playoff team, Vanderbilt. No, that Florida loss is horrible, but the committee has said that they do rank teams based on how they finish the season. Keep that in mind. Now, Texas was ranked number 1 at the beginning of the year. Arch Manning was the Heisman's favorite, and he has struggled in the early season, but on this last half, he has looked fantastic. Texas probably won't make the playoffs, and I understand that Florida loss is pretty much the killer. But at the same time, if they did get in the playoff, no team will face them. I feel they're a very feared team. Texas, obviously, probably the most hated program in the entire nation. But hey, it is what it is. Didn't have a business against Florida. Could have won in overtime, or could have gone to overtime, but they just didn't. Moving on. Do I think they should be in the playoff? I do, and we'll discuss that in a bit here when we go through the rankings. Georgia and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech starts the season out 8-0, and since then have gone 1-3 out of the ACC championship race, and most certainly out of the playoff race. A horrible defense, a good offense, but just not enough, and they fall in a defensive performance, 16-9 to Georgia, who, despite struggling against quite a few teams, finds himself at 11-1 with a very real chance to win the SEC championship. Ole Miss and Mississippi State, we're going to talk about this right now. Ole Miss playing their either rival. Yes, indeed, as I predicted, there was a fist fight during the game. The bench is cleared. Ole Miss, however, wins 38-19. Now let's discuss Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is their head coach. As we know, he has moved around quite a bit. Ole Miss is 11-1 in the SEC this year. Will not play in the SEC championship game, but they are 11-1. They are a lock for the playoff. However, LSU was ranked number 9 at the end of the year. Head coach Brian Kelly from Notre Dame. They have gone 7-5. Brian Kelly was fired, and they're looking for a new coach. The new coach happens to be Lane Kiffin. They hired Lane Kiffin. It's about $7 million, something around that lines, including a $25 million a year NIL deal. Now, most teams, big teams, are or spending about $11 million a year. That's over double, $25 million in NIL a year. It's going to be insane what they can do with that type of money, the players they can get. This is unprecedented. This is a team, Ole Miss, going 11-1, about to make a playoff run, try to win a championship. With a good team. And the coach leaves them before this happens. Now, he did request to coach the team throughout the playoffs, but Ole Miss athletic director and other board members obviously said, no, you can get out. If you're going to leave, then just get out now. Now, this is going to cause an issue. Now, the committee for the playoffs has said that they can remove teams at will based on the availability of coaches and current players. Here's the thing about Ole Miss. The portal is going to open January the 2nd, during the playoffs. And Kiffin's going to leave. I'm assuming some of his staff will all leave with him. What about players? How many players is he going to take with him with all those M's he's about to get? I envision a lot of Ole Miss's players. Will the quarterback leave? Will their other star core players on defense and offense leave? I think so. I think Kiffin will more than likely take a bulk of their starting core and their other skill players and other recruits that they're getting. Meaning that Ole Miss was going to go into the playoffs without, in my opinion, as they predict, the majority of their starting team and a lot of their skilled players. Would the committee then step in and remove Ole Miss as they removed Florida State, despite going undefeated to win their conference because the quarterback got hurt and they looked like a dog water? Would they do that with Ole Miss? And if they do that, as they should, because that would just be Ole Miss will come in, whoever they would play, they get walloped because they're playing with backups and third stringers and a brand new head coach. Is it a waste of a playoff spot, despite how successful they were this year, if that's not the same team coming in? A lot to discuss, and we'll see what they decide to do. Utah and Kansas. Now, again, Texas is 9-3. They needed a lot of teams to win this week, and none of that really happened. For instance, they needed Utah to lose. Didn't happen. Utah won, beating Kansas 31-21. Utah has a better record, despite playing in my opinion, weaker Big 12. Arizona beating Arizona State, who, after being ranked in the top 15, has had a struggled year, 23-7. Ohio State playing Michigan. They dominated the game, 27-9. It's the first time in, I think, 4 or 5 years that Ohio State has beat Michigan. Now, they lost last year. We're a 2-loss team. Went on to win the championship. They're looking very, very poised and ready to do that again and try and go back-to-back. But they finally beat Michigan 27-9 and another smackdown. In all truth, Michigan didn't even score in the second half. Michigan actually had a 6-0 lead, and it was all Ohio State from there. Texas Tech beat West Virginia 49-0 and looking very much poised to dominate the Big 12 and go to the playoff as a one-loss team. Very dangerous team, high-powered offense, one of the best offenses in the entire nation. Their defensive line alone is worth like millions of dollars. So all that oil money, they are a dangerous team. Watch out for them. Definitely a championship caliber team right here. Oregon playing Washington 26-14. Needed Oklahoma to lose LSU, and they almost did, but they pulled away late, despite there being like 5 turnovers, I think, by Oklahoma, or around the same. John Mateer had like 3 interceptions. There was a fumble of some kind. It was bad. But Oklahoma ends it. Now, if Oklahoma had lost this game, Texas would certainly surpass them because Texas beat Oklahoma early in the season when they were a top 5 team. They beat them bad. It was 26-7. However, Oklahoma has a better record. They beat Alabama, a playoff team. And Oklahoma is probably going to get in the playoffs ahead of Texas, despite Texas beating them handedly. Oklahoma wins 17-13. Notre Dame playing Stanford. One of those games that you kind of want them to lose. That would fall to 10-3. I mean, they had no shot of losing this game to Stanford. Stanford's not a good team. 9-20. Needed Alabama to lose to Auburn. That would make them 9-3. And you probably would go ahead of them because you beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma beat Alabama. However, Alabama wins late in the fourth quarter. I mean, again, Auburn's had a horrible year. They're 1-7 in the SEC. But this game almost never disappoints. Auburn played probably one of their best games all year. Nearly upset Alabama, but it's too little, too late. Looks like they had a different quarterbacking actually instead of Jackson Arnold. Alabama squeezes by and wins on a late touchdown to win 27-20, securing their spot in the SEC championship game and hopefully a spot in the playoff for them. Well, BYU needed BYU to lose. Now they still might be able to surpass BYU in the rankings, but doesn't mean they might get in the playoffs. BYU is 11-1, 8-1 in the Big 12. People were saying there's a lot of talk online about BYU deserving to be above Texas. Now, here's the thing: BYU's strength of schedule, they're saying, is better. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Again, at who they played. Let's see if we can find any good teams. Utah, they beat. It's a good team. And that's it. The only time they played Texas Tech, they lost 29-7. Now, I predict that Texas Tech is going to blow them out in the water again. I predict that Texas Tech will win this game by at least 21 points against BYU. That would make BYU 11-2. Now, I would put in a 9-3 Texas team over a 11-2 BYU. If the only time they played a good team, now they beat Utah, but they played a top 10 team twice. And if they get blown out again, that to me proves they do not deserve to be in the playoffs. They can get a New Year's Six bowl game against maybe a top tier SEC Big Ten team, sure. But if they get blown out again, they do not deserve to be in the college football playoff. Even if they don't get in the playoff, doesn't mean that Texas is going to be able to get in there. Miami, they needed Miami to lose big time, and Miami not only wins but puts on a great performance against a really good Pittsburgh team, or so we thought. They win 38-7, so this is a big win for Miami, proving that they can be dominant again. Now they've also beaten Notre Dame, who will probably get in the playoff. They won't even go to the ACC championship game, which might actually help their cases because they don't have that game to lose. So Miami is almost kind of a lock for the playoffs right now, above Texas. Now, should they go in above Texas, let's take a look at their schedule, see what we got here. They beat number 6 Notre Dame. And that's it. That's their only quality win. Florida State, at the time, was ranked. They're now one of the worst teams in the nation. They beat Florida 26-7. Florida beat Texas. Sure, that makes sense. But look at their schedule. Pittsburgh, only 22. Florida State, again, had a horrible year this year. As we look right here, where do we find Florida State? They're 5-7. That Florida win, however, is very convincing. So it makes sense why they should be above Texas. But again, it's so hard. Here's another big one. Vandy playing Tennessee, need Vanderbilt to lose. They had a convincing win against Tennessee, who probably were shocked. I think this is the first time Vanderbilt has beat Tennessee in a very, very long time. Tennessee having a disappointing year, falling to 8-4 and 4-4 in the SEC, not even going above 500 in the SEC. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt has its best years since probably also the 1940s, similar to A&M at 10-2 and 6-2 in the SEC. Now, I have not seen the rankings just yet, but I would assume that Vanderbilt is going to be ranked above Texas, despite Texas beating Vanderbilt, just because Vanderbilt has one more win in the win column and one less loss in the loss column. But that does not make sense to me. USC beating UCLA. Not much of a difference there. 29-10. Needed Virginia to lose. Virginia is 10-2, 7-1. Probably one of the biggest surprises of the ACC. They're going to the ACC championship game. Playing Virginia Tech, no shock there, 27-7. SMU gets upset by California, falls to 8-4, despite being ranked, I believe, 21 or within around 15-20 in the beginning of the year. They're 8-4, so not as good of a year as they thought they were going to have. Tulane beats Charlotte, 27-0. Now, we're going to get back to Tulane a bit. They're 10-2 and 7-1 in the American, so a very much smaller conference. However, keep in mind that for the college football playoff, the top 4 or 5 ranked conference championships get in. And now we're going to go to the next week and talk about why that's important. Here are our conference championships. Sunbelt, Troy and James Madison. James Madison ranked number 25 for the first time in school history. North Texas and Tulane. Either one of these teams win, they might get in the playoff. BYU and Texas Tech, 11-4. Again, either one of those teams get in the playoffs, they might win. BYU loses, they should be out of the playoffs, guaranteed, regardless of who replaces them. Georgia and Alabama, likewise. If Georgia loses this game, they'll only be 11-2. Should they still make the playoffs? I think so. And again, Georgia has only lost to Alabama this year. If Alabama loses, they might fall out of the playoffs and be replaced. Do I think so? Perhaps. Indiana and Ohio State does not matter. Both these teams are going to play in the playoffs, regardless of what happens here. Duke and Virginia. This is the big one. Duke is 7-5, but because of technicality, they're in the conference championship. Let's look at the standings right quick and why this is important. Let's go to the ACC. Here we got 6-2 teams. Look at this big tiebreaker. We got SMU. Overall ranking is 8-4. Look at Miami Hurricanes. They're 6-2. 10-2, ranked number 12 in the playoffs currently. Pittsburgh Panthers is 6-2, no longer ranked, but were previously ranked, now 8-4. Georgia Tech, ranked 22, is at 9-3, but 6-2 in the conference. And Duke Blue Devils are 6-2, but 7-5 in the full win-loss column. This is the important part right here. Look at these scores. All right, this score, this one right here. Their win-loss, PF, stands for points. This is based on the overall ranking, the overall win and loss columns and percentages of the teams you beat. Because this technicality, Duke has the most points out of these teams right here. 56, 62, 76, 57, 290. Because teams that Duke has played have a better win-loss percentage, they get in. Let's see who they played. In the ACC, they lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to Virginia. They beat Clemson. And that's it. They lost to Georgia Tech. However, even though they lost to Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech is not in the conference championship. That makes no sense to me. They have the same record. Georgia Tech beat them, but Duke goes in above them. That makes no sense. Let's check out Pittsburgh for a quick second. Who have they beat? They beat Georgia Tech. They lost to Miami. Okay, so by this metric, if they're tied, both Georgia Tech and Pittsburgh, the same record. However, Pittsburgh beat Georgia Tech. That means that Pittsburgh should go in above Georgia Tech and Duke, because Georgia Tech beat Duke and Pittsburgh beat Georgia Tech. That makes sense. That's why it is rankings like this. Okay. Now let's go to SMU real quick. Let's see who they've beaten. They beat Miami. Okay. That's it. So they beat Miami. Let's go to Miami. See who they've played. Where are we at? Miami. All right. Miami has beat Pittsburgh. That's it. And they lost to SMU. Okay. So by this metric, it should be SMU in the conference championship game. Because here's why. However, SMU just lost to Pittsburgh. It's a continuing circle. All right, so here we go. Georgia Tech beat Duke. Georgia Tech should be above Duke. Pittsburgh beat Georgia Tech, so Pittsburgh should be above Georgia Tech. And then Miami just beat Pittsburgh, so they should be above them. And then we've got SMU, who beat Miami. That's why they're above them. However, SMU just lost to Pittsburgh. So they lost to California. They beat Miami. Yeah, so by this metric, if we go by opponents that you played, SMU should be in the conference championship. That's why they're in this ranking right here. They're above it. But we're looking at these scores. Because they all have the same record, the ACC has decided to completely throw out the matchups all the way and put Duke in. And it makes no sense. All these teams here, here, and here, and here should be in there above them. It's some dumb technicality. I don't know what they're thinking. Here's the thing, and here's why this is really important. If Duke pulls out this upset and beats Virginia, that would push Virginia to 10-3. That pushes them out, in my opinion, of the playoffs. Now, Duke would go to 8-5. Okay. However, that would not probably put them in the top 25. You cannot put a 5-loss team in the top 25. You can't do it. That means that James Madison and Tulane will be ranked above them. Either if James Madison wins, they'll be ranked above them. They'll be in the playoffs. If either of those teams win, they'll be above them. In the playoffs. That means 2 non-Power 5 mid-major conferences will get in the playoffs. And the only chance for ACC to get a team in would be Miami. If Virginia wins, we might have Virginia and Miami. But if Duke wins, we might only have Miami. So the ACC champion, if Duke wins, will not be in the college football playoff. You cannot put Duke in the championship at 7-5 because they won't probably be ranked. So now let's go into the rankings. Playoff prediction. Let's go with this. No, we don't want that. Get out. Let's go down to the rankings. All right. Georgia and Tech move up 1 after A&M falls for the first time. So the top 4 getting buys are these 4 teams. Depending on who these teams win, one might lose a bye, one might contain it. If Georgia loses, they might lose their bye. Texas Tech will probably win. I pretty much guarantee Texas Tech will win. They'll keep their bye. They might move up a bit. Oregon at 5 probably will not move. Might move up if Georgia loses. All right. Ole Miss at 6. Again, their coach is leaving. They might lose a lot of players. If they do, does the committee decide to pull the plug and pull them out of the playoffs because it won't be the same team because they're going to lose a lot of players? Who knows? That's going to be a crazy mess. A&M is at 7, guaranteed to stay in the playoffs. Oklahoma, guaranteed to stay in the playoffs because they're 10-2. They won't play in the conference. They can't get no loss. Alabama, if they lose, it's hard, but they might get pushed out. If they win, they're guaranteed. If Georgia loses, I still say they would be in the playoff. Notre Dame, guaranteed in. BYU has to win, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to lose. And they should be bad. They should be pushed out. Miami at 10-2, pretty much almost guaranteed to get in the playoff. Texas needs a lot of mess to happen. For instance, for Texas to get in, they need BYU to get blown out. Okay? They need Georgia to beat Alabama. And they need Ole Miss to be an outer mess, or how the team leaves and the committee decides to just pull them out of the playoff. What they need to happen. And Texas is Vandy. Now, I do agree with this, that Texas should be above Vandy because we did beat them despite having a worse record. Then we've got Utah at 15. Again, a team we're ahead. Texas has 3 top 10 wins. Virginia going to the conference championship at 10-2. Again, probably should be above USC. I'm not going to lie. Honestly, might even put them a bit higher. Maybe above Utah and Vandy. We've got Arizona, the Big 12, moving up at 18 after having beginning of the season. We're not having a good year, but they've done really great in the second half of the season. They're at 19. Michigan falls 19. Arizona's at 18. Tulane's at 20. Houston was in the rankings, fell out, and are back in at 9-3. Georgia Tech is at 22. Iowa's back in 23. Texas is at 24. James Madison is at 25. So here's a college football playoff. Do they have a bracket? They don't. Let's go to the stats real quick. Season ending. Drew Messmaker. Awesome. Already top 2. Nice. Jeremiah Love. Receiving. This is really tough. Like, what's going to happen here? Do we have? I wish we had a college ball playoff bracket. Why I just did caps? Here we go. ESPN. Pulling up Twitter. So right now, here are the buys. Either one of these teams win, guaranteed bye. Georgia, guaranteed bye. Texas Tech, probably going to stay at a bye, might move up. Here's this, Conference Championship 5, Conference Championship 4. As of right now, there are only 2 more spots to obtain. If Duke wins, these 2 are going to go to, and these teams win, is going to go to either North Texas or Tulane. And here would be JMU if they win. Now, if Alabama loses, they should fall out. Okay. If they lose, who replaces them? Let's look at the rankings. Who's going to replace them? BYU loses. BYU wins. They're in. Texas Tech stays in. I would say. So let's say this. Let's say Texas Tech loses. 2-loss team. Let's say Alabama wins and Georgia wins. Who beats Georgia? It's going to push out one of these teams. All right. So let's say Tech wins. Potential BYU. Alabama loses. All right. Who takes that spot? Is it 2-loss BYU? Shouldn't be, because they just got blown out by the only good team they've played twice. Miami's in. Okay? Miami's not in. So that means Miami, for this ranking, would get in before Texas. So Texas needs Ole Miss, 2 lowest players, get kicked out. A lot of teams shuffle. Miami gets in. Alabama loses. Texas gets in. Imagine they get into this 9 spot and they play. They probably wouldn't, but they'd probably go right here. So imagine they get this last spot at 10 and they replay A&M. That would be awesome. So it is a utter mess. It's gonna. Who knows what's gonna happen? I think it's gonna be a great playoff. I mean, look at this match. Look at these top 4 right here. If Texas doesn't get in, I would love to see Indiana pull off the most crazy year of all time for being one of the worst programs in the history of college football, national champion, undefeated season. That would be amazing. But it is an insane end of the year. It's been an awesome year, even though Texas is not done as we predicted. But I love college football. This is awesome. The Lane Kiffin thing is really, really bad. We need to change that. Coach can't leave a program unless they get fired until the very end of the season. Portal cannot open until the very end of the season. That means the end of the conference, of the end of the playoffs. This should never happen again. But that's it for today's video. Leave a like if you enjoyed. If you're watching this video, make sure to check out my other videos where I play Star Wars: The Old Republic for some video gaming. I finally brought it back after being away since May. Go check that out. Appreciate all the support. If you guys are excited for the playoffs as much as I am. That being said, this is Easter 3, signing out.